Morning, everyone. It is Friday, January 22nd, 2016, and this is episode 6 of Gersh's Gaming Diamond or Ragequit, as I try and work my way up the ladder until I either get to Diamond or I Ragequit. Anyway, so past couple of times I've been talking about sort of what my goals have been, to work on over these weeks, and I've been focusing a lot on Protoss versus Terran builds, Protoss versus Protoss builds, and really trying to work on getting that macro well set, and having a good plan to win going into those games. And I would love to show you the phenomenal progress that I've made. And I guess in some ways, I have made some pretty good progress. But today is going to be actually something more tactics-based. So this is a game I played a few days ago against a Terran player. And I want to get started and kind of show you guys what happens with this one. So as I'm going through, I'll sort of describe the build that I'm going for here. As I'm kind of doing with all my builds right now, I'm starting gate, gas, expand. So there's the gas going down. It's a little bit late, but it's not too big of a deal. There goes the expansion, and there's the cybernetics core. I really feel like in pretty much every matchup, this gives me a good economic advantage early, going for this early expansion, and it allows me to get to higher tech units pretty quickly. Against Terran, specifically, I end up going for a very fast Robo Bay, which will drop down here in a moment. There we go. And the reason for the Robo Bay is there's two kind of harass to kill attacks. That's kind of what I'm calling these. These kinds of attacks where you come in to harass, and if you're good enough at the harassment, you can just kill your opponent right there, or if he's unprepared for it, whatever. So for Terrans, there's a couple of different options that this can take. One of which is a Widowmine drop, which I think I've shown you all before, where a medevac comes in with a couple of Widowmines on board. The Widowmines burrow, and they blow up all your probes, and then you die. Another version of it is quick cloaked banshees, where banshees come in and start sniping your probes. So then you take your stalker, or mothership core, or whatever, and you go to counter the banshees. Banshees cloak. So the reason for the fast Robo Bay is to get very fast detection, because if either of those two things happen, you pretty much instantly die. So other than that, fast Twilight Council. I thought this was kind of interesting that I got sort of poked early by Cyclones. Haven't had that happen before. Cyclone being one of the new units in Legacy of the Void. Oh, I'm sorry. So we continue. I've got my Observer out that's protecting these workers. And now I'm moving down here. Setting up my third. Getting Blink early. Got a handful of gateways, and this build really kind of revolves around Stalkers. It revolves around, Stalkers, Immortals, and some Colossi. Now there should also be Adepts in here, and the fact that there's not is kind of a shame on me. That's something that I need to incorporate in the build, because Adepts are just so good against Terran right now. But the idea is basically to take a third, get a handful of Colossi, and attack around the 10-minute mark. And as far as that goes, I execute it pretty well, all things considered. So here we go. I've got Blink. I decide, since I'm kind of late on this, I'm going to take a fourth. I skinned out a Hallucinated Phoenix to scout. All in all, I mean, this isn't brilliantly executed, right? This is still a build that needs some work, but could do worse, right? At this point, I have 3 Immortals, 3 Colossi, 32 Stalkers, and a couple of Sentries. I'm a little gas-starved because I built these 2 gases and then forgot to put workers in them. So I'm far from being free of mistakes, but in general, I'm in a pretty decent spot. Now, I'm actually going to slow this all the way down to normal speed, because I've been talking over and over again over these past few weeks about how StarCraft is, at its core, get a lot of stuff, more stuff than your opponent, and then don't die while you're getting the stuff, and then you kill him. This, I got a lot of stuff. I got all that stuff before my opponent killed me, and I went to kill my opponent, and I completely failed. Spoiler alert. So I want to take a look at why. So as I said, we're down to normal speed. This is as slow as I can make it. Actually, I'll put it on faster until we actually engage in battle. So, here we go. Now, he knows I'm coming. He saw me coming. I've got an observer here. I know he's got Liberators. That's one of the reasons why I was focusing on Stalkers rather than... that's one of the reasons why I got a lot of Stalkers instead of Adepts. I should have had some more Adepts, but here we are. Alright, so he's setting up the Liberators. Alright, now I'm going to slow it down. I'm focusing down the Liberators, but first problem, my Colossi are kind of wandering aimlessly, and they get focused down by his Marauders pretty quickly, as you'll see. Having said that, I do manage to kill off his Liberators. My Immortal's doing some good work. Alright, let's take a look at the losses tab. I've lost more than he has at this point, but I still have the superior army size and superior army position. I'm going to deny his 4th. This is all very good, except for the fact that I lost all of my Colossi. So what happens here? We get another round of Warp in. We'll increase back up until our next fight. And he comes to pulls all of his SCVs off of his 3rd to repair the bunkers. So I'm trying to snipe these down, kill the medevacs, stay out of the way of the Liberators. As you can see, this bunker I can't kill because of all of the workers repairing it, so I need to start killing off the workers. Gee, if I had had some of my Colossi still, it might have made short work of those workers, of those SCVs. So I'm starting to snipe off the workers. I'm now able to kill the barracks, kill the Marauders around it, killing those Stalkers, pull back. I take out the Liberator and only gets 1 shot off. I'm still warping in more Stalkers, bringing in additional reinforcements. This looks like I'm winning. Not winning convincingly, but I'm winning. Stalkers are, you know, not... Marauders are a good counter to Stalkers. He's got a lot of them. But, and then this happened. He comes in with 4 Liberator reinforcements, sets up, I don't focus them, and I'm suddenly dead. The losses now, I'm way ahead on losses. Active forces, I'm now behind for the first time this game, with basically now I'm sitting on 5 Stalkers in my Mothership Core. Now he doesn't have much, but 4 Liberators, 2 Marauders, and 6 Marines is definitely going to best 5 Stalkers. What went wrong there? So, part of it, I think, is a composition issue. Having some Adepts instead of all of the Stalkers would have made the earlier parts of the attack a little bit easier to stomach. right? Because the Adepts do better against Marauders than Stalkers do, because Adepts are lightly armored, and Marauders, their bonus damage is just versus armored units. In addition, but having said that, with all of these Liberators, and I knew that the Liberators were there, so I don't think having lots of Stalkers were necessarily a bad idea. Now, one of the things I do is I dropped a couple of Stargates, and I started making Void Rays. I'm kind of experimenting with different ways to counter Liberators. The ideas that I have, and I don't know if any of these are right, total honesty. The ideas that I have, maybe going with Void Rays against Liberators. I'm wondering if Tempests do okay against Liberators. I'm wondering if Phoenix do okay against Liberators. I'm trying to find a Liberator that's not in its siege mode to see what it's... Nope, he's only got 4, and they're all in defense mode. I haven't really figured out what to do versus Liberators. And their ground attack is insane, right? This 85 damage, regardless of unit type. I mean, that's siege tank level damage, and it fires faster, right? That's tough. A Stalker fires at about the same rate and does a sixth of that damage. A sixth? A fifth? Somewhere around there. It's low. That's the point. We could go on this replay, but, I mean, the short version is that I die. I'll run it forward a little just because I want to see one of these Liberators come out of Defender mode, so we can take a look at some of the stats on it. There we go. So, Lexington Rockets, as it's there to air attack, does splash damage. 7 times 2, so it's 14 damage. In some experimenting that I've done, because Void Rays tend to clump, they do well against the Void Rays. But they're also armored, so Void Rays with their prismatic alignment also melt them. So it kind of feels like you have, when Liberators and Void Rays and roughly equivalent levels of supply and resource count fight each other, it sort of feels like you have two... You're taking like 2 blocks of glass and just smashing them together, right? One of them is going to end up slightly more shattered than the other, and in the meantime you're going to have like shards of glass all over your hands. Now another way to... Now I'll say I think air units would also help against Liberators, because Liberators have to choose whether they're attacking air or whether they're attacking ground. So, therefore, if you have an entire ground army, if your entire army is ground, then the Liberators, then the entire Terran army can attack you, right? Including the Liberators in attack mode. But if you have an air army, if you have some air forces supplementing a ground army, then the Liberators have to choose, well, do I go after air or do I go after the ground? So, I'm focusing a lot on Liberators, but that's not the whole problem. The whole problem is... I'm going to go back about 30 seconds. Actually, I'm going to go back further than that. Let's go back to when this fight started. That'll work. We'll just fast forward to the fight. Okay. I'm trying to get to the fight. Alright, so this is a part I want to highlight. You see my Colossus just dying right there? So that's part of it. Part of it is I have these units that are wandering over here and attacking the command center. My unit control is bad. Like, just just being brutally honest here. My unit control isn't very good. And that's why these Colossi die. And that's ultimately, as we go forward into the fight, why I'm not able to end the game right here. I mean, sure, I'm able to walk out of this Liberator zone, but it takes a while. So why am I going after all of these SCVs and this bunker when I should just two-shot this bunker and kill the guys inside of it? Instead, I'm getting poked over and over and over again, and now the Liberator's taking some shots. When I have the ranged units, I could have blinked forward, like to here, especially now that most of my stalkers are most of my not stalkers are dead. Could have blinked forward and killed this, you know, the thing that's not being repaired. I could have blinked up here, killed the Liberator, and then just gone to town on everything in here. Instead, I'm focusing on that which is being reinforced. I mean, yeah, I do manage to take down both of the bunkers, and I kill a bunch of the SCVs. But, I mean, at what cost, right? To the point that at this moment, right, the army sizes are... I mean, it's evening up. I've lost so much. I'm starting to repeat myself. Let me go to the next part of this that I wanted to look at. Here's what the issue is not. I'm going to pull up the GG tracker for this game. And you can see here, when the fight starts, holy moly, do I outclass him on active forces in terms of the strength of those resources. And then, at the end of that fight, I'm all the way down here. This first part of the fight, I'm not so concerned with. It's the second part of the fight that I just lose. And I lose badly, and we haven't seen the rest of this game, but suffice to say I never recover. And then at the end, I mean, even though we start fairly equivalent on army size, I just take disproportionate losses. But you know what? Through all of that, my spending skill, which is spending skill on GG Tracker, I'm not sure I've talked about this before, takes is a single number that from an algorithm that represents kind of your workers produced, your resources collected, your average unspent resources. So it's basically how well are you making money and spending money, and it's the equivalent of Grand Master. Granted, this guy did a little bit better, but you're talking a spend quotient, that's the SQ, of 80. Gosh, that's a lot. And if you look at this, I have a lot of minerals, just for a little bit. And during that whole time, my gas is low the entire game. I never even got to 1,000 gas the whole game. My workers active, solid, 60. 60's fine. 70 might be better, but 60 is fine. The problem is not macro. If I go back to my GG Tracker profile, as my email address popped up there for a moment. Don't email me. If I go over to my GG Tracker profile, look at this. It's inconsistent, granted, but it's mostly high. Grandmaster. Let me filter this down to just 1v1 games, but Grandmaster Gold, Grandmaster, Grandmaster Bronze, Diamond, Master, Master, Grandmaster, Master. That's been... let's finish this week. Silver, Grandmaster, Grandmaster, Master, Grandmaster, Gold. Like, that's been the last week and a half. Granted, there's some slip-ups in there, Gold, Bronze. But we're mostly looking at Diamond or higher on my spending skill. So the problem's not macro. The problems that I'm having in this game are not macro, which is frustrating because most of the guides and most of the resources that are out there for StarCraft 2 are focusing on macro, because apparently most players have bad macro but good micro. I have the opposite problem. So I'm on the hunt for good resources of things I can do to improve my unit control, to improve my tactics, to think fast on my feet. Those are all of the things that I'm focusing on, because plus or minus a little bit of unit composition, plus or minus a little bit of plus or minus a little bit on strategy, on overall strategy. I'm hitting above my weight class in terms of macro, in terms of strategy. I'm not hitting above my weight class when it comes to tactics and unit control. So that's what I'm working on over the next week or two. And I think that's about it, actually. I don't have anything else for today, so please leave a comment. Leave a good link to some resources that might help me. I would greatly appreciate it. Let me know how I'm doing. But I think we're gonna get there. I'm still this is, I think, gonna be the last video I make for this ladder season. I think the season resets on Tuesday, on Thursday, somewhere in there. We're gonna be in a new ladder season. So I'm really hoping to place gold in the next ladder season. If not, I've got a couple of months to work my way up to gold. And yeah, hopefully over the course of this season, we've come up with good builds against each of the races. We're still refining them, but we have them. And now it's just a question of improving those sort of not even minute by minute, but second by second decisions in order to maximize, or at least utilize, the forces that we're creating. So that's it. Hope you liked the video. I'll see you all next time. Cheers.